Good evening, good morning, good afternoon.
Good
Hi.
evening. Good evening.
Hello, Asha ji.
Yeah, how are you?
Yes, good. Tarun, you're muted, huh? Muted, Tarun.
Now I'm unmuted. Hello.
Unmuted. Hi, Alenka. Hello, Lee. Hi, Mary Catherine.
Hi.
Okay, I am going to... So since it's a small group so far, let's begin by checking in. What the one word that describes what you're present to. Alenka, we begin with you.
Forgiveness. Forgiveness.
Okay. And you can pass it on to the next person.
Okay. Just a moment to Ashas. Ashas?
Yeah, gratitude. My word is gratitude.
Okay,
And
Anasha,
I
you
pass
can
it
pass
on
it.
to Lay.
Lee.
Okay. My word is gratitude as well. And I will pass it on to Mary Catherine.
My word is love, and I pass on to Asha.
Asha has been, so Kavita or
Okay.
Tarun.
Kavita.
Kavita. Okay, Kavita, we need your one word that you're present to.
Hello.
Hi,
Yeah,
Kavita.
ma'am. Yeah.
Yes, your one word that you're present to.
Love.
Love. Okay, Tarun. Tarun, your word that you're present to.
Patience.
Patience. And
It's a
Anushri.
difficult thing to learn.
Anushri, you need to unmute.
Yes, my word is acknowledgement.
Okay. We have Justin joining us. Hi, Justin. Your one word that you're present to.
Thank you. Immediacy.
Immediacy. Okay. And just give me a moment. I'm just going to send some of the questions that I have received. I'm sending them to you, Anushri.
Okay. Mynoo, I also have a question from Meena ji.
Yeah. I will just send you this one as well, and then we'll begin. Okay. Okay, great. So let's begin with our questions. And I would have normally begun with, it's the 15th and we've been into the pipeline for a while, but there is actually a question about the pipeline. So I'm actually going to simply begin with that. And it's a question from Asha ji. So the first one is that regarding the pipeline, what I have understood is anytime any turmoil comes, stand up, be with your truth, which is always there, and the turmoil can't do anything. Okay, so we'll begin with that one first. So there are a few characteristics to understand about this particular time that began on the 11th. And basically, it isn't like, the pipeline begins and it goes stronger. It's just that it is every there's a high likelihood that most of these waves are pipeline waves. So the cadence remains the same. So the key thing is that whatever it is that you're feeling, whatever it is that you are experiencing, accentuates very fast, very rapidly. So when I say that, if you feel that you're in turmoil, stand up and take that step forward. I'm saying this because the moment you experience turmoil and you acknowledge that you're experiencing it, and you declare unconditional acceptance of what is, and you stand up, there's a change of state. So it's like you've taken control again. Because if you remain in that turmoil, then the pipeline energies are such that it will multiply and you will literally be consumed and surrounded by that turmoil. By bringing about a change of state, you're actually really acknowledging that you run the show, you drive. What you say goes forward. So that's why I'm asking you to stand up, take that step forward, because it changes the state that you're in. What also is really great is by acknowledging what is going on and then making a conscious choice to change your state, add that little bit of that wonderful question, because the fact that you were able to experience what you were experiencing and stand up and change the state, you can actually ask, how much better can it get? Because you were able to take that action. And it's like reclaiming your power. Because the idea here is all the resources that are there available to you are mobilized anyway. The universe, who is at your command, you're actually getting the universe to, really deliver more and more things so that you can keep going forward, multiplying. How much better can it get? So this is a time to make the most of it. The clearer you get about what is it that you are going to take the baby step towards, so that it moves forward to such an extent that there's no going back, there's no turning back. The clearer you are about that, the more smoothly that will get accomplished. Like literally, friction starts to go away because the energy is so strong. And if anything that comes in the way, by acknowledging it and changing your state, asking how much better can it get, you are interrupting that pattern that could have taken you down. That's what is available to us. If you don't have anything specific, you can take something small. If you don't have even that doesn't come to mind, just choose, feeling alive and feeling in flow as you are experiencing aliveness. That's pretty powerful in itself. You will already experience it if you haven't done so, that if you felt a strong emotion about something, you already would have experienced it, like accentuating out of control very rapidly. I've seen that in a few meetings recently, in the last few days. So my guidance to everyone is, at this time, you remain very vigilant about what you are feeling, what you are experiencing. And you get yourself to be on the path of experiencing flow. And if somebody else who may be in a meeting with you, loses it and goes out of control, you don't have to react. Do not allow yourself to get reactivated. Just stay, just simply be. And observe. acknowledging them for in your mind that, okay, they're going through their journey. Even if they may be attacking you or blaming you, where a blame becomes something that depletes your life forces when you accept it as a blame and start reacting. When you receive it as information that you can process and act upon in your time, you take it as valuable input to evolve yourself. So I was in a meeting just the other day, or in fact, even, earlier yesterday. And one of the parties to that meeting was going on about, I am so disappointed about this, and I am so disappointed that should have been done in a different way. And it was very obvious that, this person being so disappointed and blaming a couple of other people who were in the meeting, there was something else that was going on in terms of his own relationship with, his own disappointments in life or in whatever it might be. And it felt literally like a projectile vomit of, I'm disappointed with you about this, I'm disappointed with you about this, I'm disappointed with you about this. That entire 1 hour meeting could have been literally just a tennis match of, hurling disappointment and somebody else defending and somebody else defending even more. Nothing would have been accomplished. Instead, I said, okay, you're experiencing disappointment. What else are you experiencing a disappointment in? Without having any intention to, pacify this person, just holding the space for them to rise and go beyond their own disappointments themselves. Because we can actually. It's a little bit like you will experience it at this time. The energies are so strong that when somebody hurls a blame or judgment or disappointment or whatever it might be, or accusations, basically, it's like a dare. They're daring you. They're daring you to react and respond. And you can take up that dare. And you can notice that, oh, that's a dare. They're daring me. Come on, hit me then. Well, you don't have to. You can take it on, and you don't even have to say to them just enough, you stay in your center. Just know at this time, things go out of control so fast because it literally is like, you choose to clap, and as if another force comes in and that clap becomes louder and louder. But if one hand goes away, then there is no sound to that clap. And the hand that is moving ultimately just, gets tired and stops. Who removes the hand? If it's your hand that's being hit into a clap, you remove your hand. Nobody else can. It's a fabulous boot camp. All these pipelines are a fabulous boot camp of presence. If you haven't heard my Pearl of Wisdom on Awake and Asleep, please do so. It is a fabulous time to utilize awake time and asleep time. Awake time as a way of presencing your presence, and therefore having absolute laser sharp clarity about where is it that you are going. And when you sleep, you literally leap forward towards what you have chosen and decided to accomplish. So I know, Ashaji, this is a longer answer to what you were asking, but because you asked the question, it got me to clarify a few of these things. So thank you for asking that question.
Thank you.
And I will come to some of your other questions in a moment. I'm going to take the question from Alenka, and then I'll come to Meenaji's question. I feel like I take people accountable when they actually don't really mean what they are saying. So it turns out as as if I take them. So why is there a gap between my perception and others? So it's like she takes people, she assumes that people are accountable when they say they're going to do something and they don't. So why is there a gap between my perception and their perception? It's about accountability is the question. So I know that Alenka, you're here. So it will be great for you to just bring you in as and spotlight you.
You hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. Yeah,
Hi.
it's about this accountability. It's like I kind of take people serious when they are talking, you know, it's like, I don't know, like the first meetings, usually people don't even say everything up front. And I'm like, on the first meeting, I just say what I really think about the projects and so, and then it turns out that others kind of holding things back, like having more power over whatever, you know, I don't know. It just happened so many times, and now I've been around for 2 weeks and I met a lot of new people, and I'm kind of very cautious now what to believe or not. And it's a weird feeling because my nature is to believe. So I really believe everything that people are saying, but it's really a lot of bullshit, you know. So what is that? Yeah.
So, you know, people will do what they will do. They will say whatever they will say. How we allow that to affect us, how we allow that to impact us is up to us. So I choose to retain my belief in people, right? So I choose to retain that. And it is true that people make commitments, and I act on the basis that they have made that commitment. And it is not that I don't come across where people just don't fulfill on their side. I've done my part, used my time and energy and resources, and the other side doesn't deliver on their part. It does happen. And rather than go into a space where I lose that innate faith and belief in people's abilities and their goodness, which actually would put me in a lower vibe, I choose to acknowledge that, okay, this is their journey. I also know from my own experience that when I say I'm going to do something, I know I've said it. Mm-hmm. And I know that they also, whatever they may be, wherever they may be, they know that they said it, right? Mm-hmm. And for me to get disappointed because they haven't done their part, well, I acknowledge that I'm disappointed at that particular point in time, you know. And I still choose to honor myself by saying that, okay, I acted and put all this time, energy, and resources in good faith. And I've done this before, and it has happened before, and I did it again. And what is it that I am supposed to get out of it? Okay, one is I would not go back and trust that person again. I wouldn't. So that's fine. That's something that I've gotten. I also learned so much, Alenka, in looking at it like that. As someone who is curious, Alenka, that I start seeing signs long before they happen in other circumstances. But I also start seeing what is it in me that seduces me to keep going. When at an intuitive level, I already know very early on, it's not worthy of taking action. And yet I've allowed myself to be seduced. But then it's like, okay, what did I enjoy about that experience then? Why did I allow myself to get seduced? You know? Yeah. So, and of course, I know my source mastery. So, and so do you now. So I always say, okay, this situation has occurred. How is it in service of me being in my mastery with myself at that moment?
Thank you for that. But it's like also like I'm still giving, like, for example, I have a interesting encounter for the project. I would like to find investor, and I am thinking to talk to a person which I already had a not so good experience, and I'm still thinking about to communicate with that person about this new project. I'm thinking, am I crazy? Why I'm even thinking about this? If I already have that experience, and I still kind of believe that this person would be right, but I mean, I already kind of know it's not right. But what she does, it seems like it fits to that, but it left me out if I do that, introduce this two person to do that. It's like, it's weird that I even think about it to that person who already disappointed me, again, to do it the same thing all over.
Yeah, so it's like as if you're doing it to yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's an interesting insight for you to discover what is the payoff to you from subjecting yourself to that. We really don't do anything without some form of payoff. It may be that there is a sense of victory in, look, I got beaten down here, beaten down here, beaten down here, and I did it. It could be that, or it could be something else. Just look into that. I'll share something with you, which is, this is how I've turned these situations in my stride. And when I work with business leaders, I proactively suggest to them to operate this way, which is, I always say that when you have an idea or a project or a pitch, the first thing you do is find a couple of skeptics, people that will be skeptical about it. And the reason for that is that there is a way in which, when you're coming forward with something, there's a way in which you can harness the skeptic. Right? Now, when you harness the skeptic, they will keep coming up with, yeah, but this won't work and that won't work, or there's no way this can happen like this. There's no way, you're just like, thinking it's a pipe dream. Yeah. Right? So the thing about when you find a skeptic, the idea isn't to convince them about anything. The idea is to harness all the reasons they tell you why it can't be done, so that you can prepare and address all of those points.
Yeah.
When you start with a project, when you come up with an idea, what's really important to remember, if you just went to people who will love that idea, it's great, it feels great, but there may be many holes that you may not even be aware of. So when I come up with an idea, even before I have people who support me, I go for who are the skeptics. So I always say to people, find a skeptic. If you have a skeptic in the house, be it your mother, your grandmother, your partner, or whoever it might be, find at least one who will tell you, well, no, this can't be done. And then you go for it, right? Like I have a couple of skeptics in the house, in my family, which is wonderful. So they are the first people I go to. And because they love me too, they really want to protect me from taking a step and, destroying my own confidence. I don't get destroyed anymore by that. They really give me every little nuance of why something is not going to work and how many things I should be cautionary about before I take this step. And the most important thing, Alenka, to remember is do not convince anybody. Your only job is to harness the skeptic initially and get with the intention that you get all the things that could go wrong. So you can now put all of that in place, go back to the skeptic, and they may or may not, often my skeptics say, that's interesting. We'll see. Well, let's see. So that's good. It doesn't matter. I don't want them to buy into it, but I know I've got any of the pieces in place. Now I go out. Okay. The most important thing, and particularly at this time during the pipeline, Alenka, do not let anything bring you down. Know that it is having an effect, acknowledge how it's affecting you, and make a conscious choice to unconditionally accept, step forward.
Yeah. Thank you.
And thank you for asking this question. It's a really important one.
Thank you.
Meena ji, I know you have a number of questions that you have asked. And if any of you have questions, raise your hands. Anushri will track you. And
Tarun is here, Mynoo, but there is one more thing I just wanted to let you know. There is flashing lights behind the curtains, right?
is that? Oh,
Yes.
very distracting, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Exactly.
hold on a second.
Actually, they look good. I was happy to see.
Mynoo didn't know that. I just
Illumin-
wanted to let her
illumin-
know.
Actually, I saw and I liked it. Oh no, what did you do?
Yeah.
It's like a timer. Okay.
Yes, I guess Tarun is here. Tarun, can you just unmute yourself?
Okay. And Meenaji will come to your questions straight after.
Okay, so one moment, I've actually written it down. So,
Tarun, just turn your camera around.
is
So
this
out of flashing lights and turning our head, it would be
now that you've closed Diwali already?
okay.
Actually, I get the fact that, and I think some part of it is already answered. But it has from previous question. How do you actually deal with people who are constantly, or people who wronged you and are constantly in the same process? I've got to, from previous conversations, I've got to the point of not reacting, and just sitting there in source. So so it's fun because I know that you're going to do what you're going to do. And sometimes it's just so predictable that I'm like, why is it not done yet? Right. But also it comes to a point where I'm just thinking, why is that your innate nature to keep wronging? Is that something that I'm inviting, or maybe I am, no?
Yeah. This is a very good question. And I'm just need to ask Anushri to take some action. Anushri, there are a couple of people. There's someone who is Zoom user, so it would be good to rename yourself with your name. And
Yeah.
also there's a phone number, so it would be good to know what the name is. Okay, if you can take care of that.
Sure, sure.
So Tarun, this is a really good question. When this kind of pattern in others shows up, even if you are feeling you can handle it yourself, it's like, why is it showing up, in your presence? Am I inviting it? And my answer to that is nothing. You are inviting it. Nothing actually occurs that in our presence that isn't a vibrational match to whatever we are vibrating. Now, the fact that this is not bothering you in the way it had bothered you before, very soon these sort of things will stop happening in front of you, because the universe takes care of it. And it knows that, you actually have you're in a different place and there's a different vibration you want to multiply. Okay, so you'll just see it will literally literally start waning out very soon, this kind of behavior. And you may even find the same people actually start laughing at their own display of how they had behaved in the past, or they will just disappear. They just won't be showing up in that way. But it is true, we attract this, and then how we clear out this sort of stuff is again based on how we choose to respond to this or not respond. That also is a response in itself. So that's a key thing to remember. The main thing is, focus our attention on us. And that is the way the world around us transforms. It rises, always, it rises to match where we are. So I always have Just like I talk about baby steps, one of the things that I'm now noticing with my little grandbaby, after him teaching us baby steps, I'm noticing how he takes what has occurred with, there's a childlike curiosity and wonder that is there. And he will process it, even if it means he reacts initially with a cry, but he pacifies himself because he's now got something out of it. So I quite like that childlike curiosity and wonder, which is what you're doing right now by asking this question in this way, as opposed to a question which is asked by, why am I being victimized by the same repeat way in which these people are behaving, when they already know that I'm not going to give them what they want. So
this comes out of that fact is a fact, right? So see it as see people as, or rather see situations as situations.
Yeah.
But I realize that a particular set of people will continue to behave in a certain way because everyone's sense of security is different. So I just rather concentrate on myself than to look at the world around and why someone's doing it. Actually, it's not my problem. Shouldn't be my problem.
Yeah.
But if it's okay, can I ask one more quick question?
Mm-hmm.
What's the link between anger and gut health?
So anger as an emotion shows up in the form of stones, particularly in the gallbladder and liver and stuff. Gut is connected to, it's a brain. It's like a brain, which is connected to every single organ. There is also a connection of deep-seated anger that causes intense frustration that you're not able to express. It has an effect on the kidneys. Now, gut health is directly impacted because there's a section which connects to the kidneys, there's a section which connects to the liver. So when you're holding anger, yes, sure, it weakens those organs because those organs are now not in a state of absorbing. Where do they get the nutrients to absorb? From the gut. So there are certain areas of the gut which actually stop being in their natural rhythm of peristalsis, right? The entire gut is it's a muscle, and muscle works on contraction, relaxation. The peristalsis is that contraction, relaxation. So this one big muscle where certain parts of it are not contracting and relaxing properly, the other parts have to compensate for it. So it really messes up gut health big time. And of course, it's also messing up these other organs, liver, kidney, gallbladder. So it has a direct impact on gut health. I mean, you can just imagine, right? When you have a frozen shoulder, for example, okay, your biceps can move quite nicely as a muscle, but with the frozen shoulder, it's like as if the biceps also start seizing, but they're only compensating, and that's what happens with the gut.
Ceases to operate freely.
Yeah, good question. The gut health beyond meditation is very powerful. And if you've got things like constipation or anything like that, where the cleaning is hampered, or diarrhea or IBS or anything like that, there's a very specific one that I've done, which is an energetic clearing, energetic cleansing of the colon. Sometimes in the gut, especially where the small intestine joins the large intestine, in the large intestine, there's often a collection of parasites that are there at that entry point, because that's where the most nutrients are. Otherwise they go through the gut and they get absorbed by different organs as and when the gut chooses for that to be released. So there they get the maximum collection of nutrients. So often that area, which is in the bottom right-hand side, that area, often the gut gets slightly deformed, it becomes quite clumped up. with a combination of, and also the peristalsis becomes lethargic because there's so much weight in that area. It can also start putting pressure on certain nerves in the back of your thighs. So sometimes people think it is sciatica. Sometimes people think it's a lower back, it isn't. It's really just a gut issue. So it's important to work with parasites, bacteria and fungi, which all of that affects gut health. So there is something which deals with that also that I have done. So if you have any of those issues, just private message Anushri and I'll send it. She will send you the link to work with that.
Tarun, I can send it right now. Just
If you want it. If you don't want it, don't.
Okay.
Just.
Okay.
Not yet. And I hope it doesn't pop up. But
Yeah.
the issues that I faced was, so I used to play professional sport as well, right? And then this shoulder had impingement, but which won't go away. So I've tried some exercises, but I don't think I can get past this. So I'm not sure if I can ever play again. But it's one of those things that I really want to solve.
Where, okay, so if
right shoulder.
Yeah. So there are two things that are affecting it emotionally first. So just remember, anytime we have a physical condition, the physical condition gets exasperated because of an emotional stress or distress. So when there's an emotional distress, it is a little bit like, you remember those Russian dolls that would bob backwards and forwards, doll within a doll, within a doll, within a doll, and if you pushed it down, it would always come back into the center. Our cells are like that. Our body is like that. It's meant to autocorrect, auto-revive itself. So when we have an experience like where there's an issue with the shoulder, for example, that you're having, there are two emotional things that have an impact there. One is you feeling unsupported by those that you count on to support you. And that is a load. I call it load. That's putting a load in that area. And because shoulder directly impacts the neck, there's another emotion where you feel burdened. So even if you're trying to shake off the burden just doesn't seem to go away. So on the one hand, you're experiencing burdens, there's load, and then you're not feeling supported by those that you count on to support you, that area gets weakened. So when something goes wrong, then it's as if it's an area that's ready to be inflamed, but it's emotionally inflamed first. So I would say just look at those two areas. Are there people that you were counting on to support you that haven't done so? And it's almost like, you unconditionally accept what is with them. The other area that you look at is, were there things that you weren't expecting would be your burden, and you got burdened by them inadvertently and suddenly realize, oh my God, I'm feeling so burdened. Are there things like that? So just really use the tool of acknowledgement as a way of releasing all of that. We had somebody, literally, I know I do the business collective for 2 days each month. One of the participants in that, he'd been bedridden because he had, it wasn't a slip disc, there's a gel-like thing in between the vertebra, as well as there's a disc, right? So that gel piece was protruding out. So he was like bedridden for 5 weeks, couldn't move. It's in severe pain. Physiotherapy was going on, all of that was going on. And he came to the FED session. Anushri, you were there for that one too. And I suggested to him exactly what may be going on emotionally. And I asked him to do that exercise. I said, don't even think of sitting up to do it. You just speak it aloud and acknowledge what I asked him to acknowledge. And I told him, just do it calmly. 2 days later, he messaged me saying, I can't believe it. Our painkillers are gone. I'm walking around and it's fine. I did nothing physically. I was here and I was in Dubai and he was in India at the time. And that was that, because even though his body, you see, our body can autocorrect itself, but when there is load, it autocorrects, and we somehow cope, But the moment you remove the load, it comes back to the center and then finds its center. It can start regenerating. Okay, so don't buy into the story that you will never be able to do. No, there's nothing like that. Remove the load. Understand what the emotional load is.
So once I get it, then accept with love and then move on.
Yes. Keep acknowledging, like absolute detail. So I always say, lay off the land acknowledgement. Physically, what is it that's burdening, that made me feel burdened? Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, like what took that reconnection to my spirit, what burdened that, socially, in terms of relationship dynamics, environmentally. Just really do the lay of the land as detailed and as thorough as you can. And it's only about acknowledgement. When you've acknowledged and it's like, okay, I can't think of anything else, fine. I unconditionally accept what is. Now the load is lifted. Now your body can start recuperating. Okay, you will feel that release.
Mynoo, I also felt that. I gave you the feedback also.
Yeah. And
the same
Anushree,
issue.
Anushree had the lower back issue, and you had that headache, right? You remember? It was just there.
Yes.
And when she did the work, it was during the session itself, right? The backache went away and the headache went away. No pill was needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But thank you for asking, Tarun, it's useful.
Thank you, Vera.
So just to say to everyone that, when somebody asks a question, even if it is not something that you've come up with, the fact that the question is being asked and it is being answered in the way I'm being guided to answer it, there is some nugget there for each one of us. So yes, Meena ji, let's have some of, okay. We've got, Anu, do you have a question? And then Meena ji, I'll come to you next. Okay, Anu?
Yes, Anu have a question.
Hi, Mynoo.
Yes.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to ask a question in front of so many intellectual people. First of you, I have two questions. The one is, when I start forgiving someone, okay, I try to disconnect all my cords. I disconnect myself fully. But after some days, the emotional pain again comes on the surface. How can I do that? And the second one is, how to convince my subconscious to reach my sales target on autopilot mode.
Yes.
I have heard this, that people have set this much of target on autopilot mode. How to do that? Because I'm doing so much affirmation, so much work on myself. Even then, I have never reached the target that I have decided for me, for a monthly target. We have a sales target that we will reach there. I haven't get there. I'm very positive, very loving, very caring. What are the blockages, and how to, convince it on subconsciously at autopilot mode, and how to forgive someone so that I need not to do this exercise again and again and again. After a few days, I'm again in that emotional pain. He has done this to me. He said this to me. Even then I say, after a few minutes, okay, I forgive him. I forgive myself. Now it's over. But the same circle repeats and repeats.
So Anu, thank you for asking this question. It's a situation that people experience in a variety of relationships and the kind of things that happen in life. It happens at work, it happens at home, a whole host of arenas this happens. And I mean, I can share from my own experience. I got married to my childhood sweetheart. We fell in love when I was 15, and then we got married 7.5 years later, and we remained married for 10 years. And from the first year of marriage, he started hitting me. And there's this movie called Darlings, right, that has just been released. It was like, oh my God, scenes from my life, from the time that I was courting and many other things that happened. It was like scene by scene by scene was there. when I was in the corporate world and when I finally did have the divorce, it was very clear I didn't need to be in that relationship for 10 years. I was in London, I had my own job, I was earning my own money. There wasn't any family pressure, nothing. And yet I stayed on in this marriage for 10 years. And it took my 2.5-year-old son to come and say, once when we had a huge domestic issue, nobody in my family knew this was happening. I was afraid for the life of my son and me. So I took a flight and came to Chennai, which is where my parents were. And it was my little 2.5-year-old who told my dad that I don't like my dad anymore. He hits my mom. That was the first time they got to know that something was happening. And that finally led to the divorce that took place. Now, all of that happened. And I was like, I have a whole life ahead of me. I'm going to make my son have the most amazing upbringing. All of that was there. I forgive him. And all of that was there. And yet, it was my secret. I never understood why I allowed myself to be in that space. It was like something, I felt I couldn't forgive my own self, because that was as if it was a pathetic behavior that I had engaged in. So whilst I was forgiving him, I really was never forgiving myself for allowing myself to tolerate this for such a long time, right? So the forgiveness was, directed outwards, but really the person that you are meant to forgive is yourself for having allowed yourself to tolerate that for so long. Now, forgiveness will get you so far, but that was a missing piece in the forgiveness. So the forgiveness equation was not completing for many decades, and of course I evolved. I went through my spiritual awakenings, and this situation that had occurred in my life stopped bothering me. All of that was there, and it became easier and easier. And yet, if a movie came out with those scenes, I would go back to my experiences. I found it hard to watch a movie with those scenes. And yet now when Darlings came out, I actually watched the entire movie and I was like, oh yeah, I experienced that. It was fine. So clearly something completed in my own relationship to those incidents and to the way I was reacting and responding. So when I observe something like that, I always look at, wow, what did I do that was different this time? That it is truly completed. There was no forgiveness that came in. And you know what it was? It was I acknowledged this person for everything that he had done. There was no positive incantations. There was no positive thinking, nothing. It was just stark, naked acknowledgement of every little thing that had occurred, that he had done. I also acknowledged myself for how I chose to react, respond, receive, and when somebody behaves in a way that is demeaning and you accept it, you are behaving in the same way to yourself, So I acknowledged all of that without any judgment. It was a full, wholesome acknowledgement of, then when I did that, first it was all the bad stuff and the ugly stuff. And then I actually started acknowledging good stuff that the same guy had brought into my life, And it was like, whoa, this is interesting. But I acknowledged it fully. I then also acknowledged me, how I took all of that positive stuff and what it did for me. I acknowledged that. And once I acknowledged, and I was like, is there anything else remaining to be acknowledged in this relationship? There wasn't. And then I said, okay, I unconditionally accept what is. And I was able to move forward. There was no forgiveness, nothing was needed. It was done. I was whole and complete about it. So that's what I would say to the first part, The yo-yo cycle of forgiveness occurs when we forgive someone else and but we don't necessarily take on board everything that is there for us to forgive in ourselves. That's the first part. And then you go on an acknowledgement fully of the other person, the incidents, the situations, and acknowledging yourself also fully. And you will find that if you do the acknowledgement piece powerfully, you literally land in a space where all you can do is to be grateful for everything that had occurred in your life. Like for me, I mean, I was a tremendously loyal person. I mean, the fact that this guy beat me up from the first year of marriage and I stayed with him for 10 years, that in itself shows it. But if he hadn't behaved to the extent that he did, I would never have walked away from that relationship. I would never be where I am today. So it's like, I wouldn't change a single thing. There is no if only left at all. If only he hadn't done that way. If only I hadn't. No, I was meant to. I chose to get married to him. I chose to stay there. So I could be truly, completely unleashed. And here I am, making a difference in my life and being able to share and make a difference in everyone else's life. Okay. So that's the first part. The second part of your question is also a really good one. How can you, in autopilot, achieve this? First of all, there is actually something that I'm doing, which is called the Money Manifestation Bootcamp. If you don't know about it, then Anushri can send you that information.
No,
really,
I'm already in.
You're already in. Okay, great. So you're actually going to go on some amazing journeys, which will deliver exactly this. How you get into an autopilot. The way you get into an autopilot, look, the moment you desire something, right, it is delivered. See, everything is a vibration. Our dreams, our goals, our intentions are all vibrations. You are vibrating, I'm vibrating. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to look at each other. The earth is moving so fast, we will be all over the place, right? All fractalized. So even our thoughts are as alive as a vibration as our physical presence is, as this bottle is, This bottle is as alive as you and I are. It doesn't have the state of life, but it's very alive vibrationally, right? And anything, the entire game that exists, it's a game of vibrational match. So when you desire, this is the goal that I want to get to, okay? And you can be completely audacious about it, outrageous about your goals. If you hold on that I am the one that is achieving it, you set limitations and boundaries to what you can actually physically achieve. You confine yourself physically and you achieve as much as you can physically achieve. But our physical achievement is impacted by our mental state and our emotional state, and yet we are soul beings having a human experience. And the soul has got access to infinite resources. We don't even go there. The soul is plugged into the vibration of the universe. And the universe is not guiding us. We are meant to guide the universe with our vibrations, right? So when you get yourself into the same frequency as the vibrations of your goals, autopilot occurs because the universe takes it on and you get presenced with all these different resources. And you also get the presence of mind on what conversation to use with whom, which you might never have thought about. If you only limit yourself to how I am going to do it physically with what I know, there is a boundary that you've created yourself. So here, by becoming one with the universe, utilizing the universe to really bring that forth to you, you don't have to sit back. You constantly do what is required to match your vibrations to how would I feel if I actually achieve these goals? What will be my vibrations at that time? Where will those vibrations show up? That's yours to do. And I'll teach you various ways in which the universe will step forward and work. It is amazing stuff people have experienced. There's a pearl of wisdom that I've just done last week called Asleep and Awake, which is how you use your sleep state to leap forward. Okay, but it also means to really achieve that, you have to go back to how do you put yourself in the wake of your own presence? So that is your power. There's many, many little nuances that come together, dots connect, and it becomes autopilot. And the momentum is set in. Your word gives you your world. So thank you for asking these questions. I'm sure this is something that will be in service of everyone.
Really, you are really adding value to our lives. I'm really grateful, Thank you so much. I have manifested you. We are, sitting in front of you. That's a great thing for me. Thank you.
You're welcome, Anu, and I'll see you very soon. Okay. Yes, Meenaji, come on.
First of all, acknowledging gratitude, grace, synchronicity, and thank you for healing my husband. This was a miracle. Like for 10 hours, he had pain. All his tests came negative. And I asked for your healing energy. And thank you for that. I must acknowledge in a group also. And just wanted to say, like all these questions I had in my mind. I wrote something and sent it in a WhatsApp group. Then I had these questions, and these people, starting from Tarun, starting from Anu, these are the questions I had. And today I said, I'll tell you, just tell me about the energetic, about organs, like which organ holds, like gut, mind, brain, all these, what energies each organ holds. This was fascinating me. And it's all coming in like, so very present to synchronicity. I'm surprised, whatever I'm reading, whatever I have questioned, I get those articles from somewhere. I laugh, it's WhatsApp University, but I'm getting the right ones. So I'm thankful for that. And you already have question in my WhatsApp. It's on my phone. So yes. If you, somebody.
Okay, and I also want to acknowledge you for giving me the hospitality of your home here in Delhi. So here I am. I'm actually Meenaji's home in Delhi. So thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm happy. My house will have very positive and divine presence. So I'm very happy. I'm happy to host you. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So let me just get your questions. So there was a question about where do thoughts come to our mind? How many realms? I'm going to read a few of these questions just so that the way the answer is going to flow to address all of those. So some of the questions cluster. The first question cluster is, where do thoughts come to our mind? How many realms are there? If the soul has crossed over and decides to come back for an experience or guidance or teaching, helping humanity, does the whole soul come back or a fraction of it, and the balance stays in the light? Okay, so I'll come back to the soul questions in a moment. First, let's talk about the thoughts part. Where do thoughts come from and how many realms are there? The realms are actually not difficult. There are 13 realms that are there. And actually, when the soul comes in, at any point in time, in any of those realms, the soul may decide that, okay, it's done. It's actually not going to come. So when it does come in, that is why for me, the celebration really is that the time that the fetus is formed, that is our birthday. So anytime those of you who are close to me, I always wish you a happy first breath day on your birthday, because that really is the first time you take that breath, the gift of life, outside of the human body. Your birthday is actually when the soul came in, and the soul comes in at the time of the fetus. So just don't be deluded by that fact that you can abort in the first 3 months or something like that. It's not that. The moment the fetus is formed, the soul is in, and it's your choice, whatever you choose to do. So now this, and when the soul departs, it goes through these 13 realms. And in most places, the soul departs, and it takes a little bit of time before they do the funeral service, and there are different customs that people have, and I'm aware of some of them that happen in India. Where on the 13th day, you do a particular celebration of the person's life. And there's like, I know from my own parents, when they departed, we actually took their body for cremation on the 4th day after they had crossed over, not on the same day itself. The point of all of this is the crossing of the soul across all of these different realms. There's a completion that takes place. The significance of the realms, and I know I'm answering more than you've asked for here, the significance of the realms is to support a completion of a particular life experience of the soul. So when the soul chooses to depart, even if you were really anxious and worried during the time that soul was around, when after the departure has taken place, use that time to anchor in and celebrate the life of this soul when it was alive in its human form. That completes that soul's journey and has a direct impact on what the soul chooses to do, and with what form it chooses to return back into the planet. When this completion is not done, the soul comes back sometimes sooner than it's meant to, and often it comes back with tons of baggage from the previous life. Anyway, we can do a whole year on the study of the soul, but that's how much I want to talk about that part. Now let's look at the thoughts. I like to connect the thoughts with the mind. See, mind also nobody has seen, and yet it is very distinct as an energy form. There is brain that is physical. Mind is mental. Thoughts is what brings the emotional presence. So the mind has only one role. Its role is to have you survive. And therefore, its only function is, I call it spatial awareness, being aware of the space in which your human form is existing, so that your human form can remain protected and survive. Mind does not generate any thoughts. Thoughts are more of an emotional expression, which is a cellular expression, which initially is triggered as a reaction. And the reaction comes from your soul's experiences in its previous lives. That's what it brings in, and at an energetic level, it is held in our cells. So that starts the cycle of thoughts. There's an initial trigger. And then a thought is something that continually regenerates itself. So the thoughts get regenerated based on meaning that you give something that has occurred. Mind's point is, it's only about spatial awareness. Thoughts are based on past experiences. And it is the past that really sits in the future. And the thought is the first thought that comes, that is generated. It is generated when you first develop the awareness to give meaning to a fact. It is the first baby step where you start giving meaning to a fact. My grandson falls down. He hurts himself, he cries, and it's done. And I notice a time in the life of this child, a few months old, where the quality of his crying changed. He hurt himself, he cried, and then the crying became of a different quality altogether, and it lasted longer than it did a few days ago. But now this baby is giving it meaning. And then as the child starts to grow up, the thoughts are now starting to multiply. And there's a whole variety of ways in which meaning is given, a whole variety of meanings that are given. And we become a meaning-making machine expressed through our thoughts. So it's quite useful to know that that is where thought originated from the first time you gave meaning to a fact. And that probably was when you were a tiny little baby. The catalyst got sparked and the meaning-making machine started being catalyzed over and over and over. That's where a thought comes from. And it is emotional, not even though it gets triggered mentally, but it's an emotional response and reaction. So that's what I would like to say to that. Now, moving on to your questions about the soul. So I'm just going back to the questions. Talked a little bit about if the soul has crossed over, decides to come back for an experience or guidance, does it come back in its whole form, or is there a fraction that is there? There is a whole body of work that I have certainly done and experienced, and there are many others who write about it. Yes, so it varies, right? So when it comes back, sometimes it comes back in its entirety. Other times it comes back in a tiny fraction, and then the rest of the soul follows. Sometimes it comes in its entirety and decides to fracture out. So knowing what I know now, soul fractures happen all the time because it is infinite. The first thing I always do is soul retrieval with people. Anu was asking about, how do I get my sales targets on autopilot? If you've got a fractured soul presence, then the first step to that is to bring all of your entire soul into your physical body. So you have the power of the entire soul in you. It gets fractured, yes, it does. So it varies, Meenaji. The different souls, when they make a choice of coming back, sometimes all of it comes back, and based on the experiences, because remember, the fetus is born. When the fetus is the birth of the soul in the human form. So in the first 2 to 7 years, even, the human is the age of the soul. So even as a fetus, the soul is what is in existence. So everything that occurs, all the thoughts, the conversations that the humans are having around it are its reality. And that it is in that reality that the soul may choose to fracture out. It won't go completely. It is very rare that it goes completely because it did choose this human form, but it may be born in a very feeble state. And then, depending on what occurs, the entire soul can come back in. I remember I was born into an Indian family that it's called Arya Samaj. We believe not necessarily in these godlike forms. We believe more in nature and all the power of the elements as something that holds us humans together and the planet together, and we work with these elements consistently. So every birth there was a welcome fire ceremony that would take place, Havan we call it. And my grandfather had a whole host of Sanskrit shlokas, and my mother was a postgraduate in that also, that they had a collection of these mantras that they would chant during the fire ceremony every time there was a birth in the family. as a welcome. I didn't know what that was, why that was happening until much, much after, that it is in this welcoming, because the soul connection is already there. You're actually you're welcoming the entire soul to come in. When a woman is pregnant in India, on the 7th month, there is a particular prayer ceremony that takes place. There is the baby shower equivalent that happens in the West. All of those are very powerful, welcoming containers that are created by people that love this baby and the mother that is carrying it, to welcome the entire soul into the baby. And then it can choose to fragment or not. Yes, Meenaji, I'm going to bring you back in as on spotlight.
Okay. Yes. Meenooji, two questions. If we get somebody gets pregnant and abortion is like automatic termination is done, or somebody goes for that termination, and in that case I have done once and I wasn't ready, so was it my choice or was it soul's choice just to come and touch and give me an experience and go? Like sometimes it happens automatically. In my case it was in that case. Yeah. And this was long time ago, 35 years ago.
Yeah. And, I also did a conscious abortion when I was very, very young, because it was not kosher at the time to be pregnant, for an unmarried woman to be pregnant. It did occur. It's the same soul of my son that came at that time. So he did get reborn in me. I know that from my spiritual awakenings. It is not the soul's choice to go when you make a conscious choice of abortion. It is your choice. And so as a result, there is a form of grieving, that a vibration of grieving gets set in at a heart level. And it's very deep-seated in the heart when that happens. You actually don't even realize it's there. So when you have made a choice, you've made a choice for whatever reason. It was a set of conscious interpretation of circumstances that were there, which is why you made the choice, or I made the choice at the time, and there are other women that do that. It is important to allow yourself to acknowledge whatever grieving may be there, because it has an impact on the heart chakra. We have this chakra system that allows life force and energy to move through our system. Heart chakra is impacted by grieving. So it is our choice. This is the key thing. Soul chose to come in. Otherwise, the soul will abort by itself. A miscarriage is the soul's choice. An abortion is our choice that has been imposed on a soul that actually already was born. So it is important to complete that journey. Okay, and the way to do that is simply connect to the heart. There is, you've done the journey into miracles, and there is a chakra unblocking meditation that I do share with the journeyers. It's not chakra balancing. This is unblocking the chakras. So let me see if you have already got it. If you haven't, then I will make sure that we send it to you, because you've done the journey. It's really, you need to have gone through the journey into miracles to really be able to allow that unblocking to occur very powerfully. It can take days, Meenaji. I had no idea that I had that grief. Even though I know this soul is reborn and he is my son now, yet that grieving vibe was still set. How that shows up physically is, you may have various heart conditions, but particularly aneurysms is how it shows up physically. So it is important to grieve it out. Don't worry about the physiological thing, that none of that exists in your case, But since you've asked this question, it would be an important one to just release that grief. And
when I was
No, go on.
Yeah. When I was doing Journey of Miracles, all the time I was on the move, on the road. We were traveling within US for a month, and still I was able to pick up something, but I don't think so. I've gone through that chakra healing. But somewhere I read.
Oh, sorry. Just I just interrupted you. We sent you a dossier, okay? So
I
in
know
that
that.
dossier, you have that. If you don't,
Yeah, I
if
have
you
that.
can't see the dossier, I will send you again.
No, I have that dossier and I will open it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. If you
But
don't have, just let me know.
Meenuji, yeah, Meenuji,
Yes.
somewhere I read soul comes to the fetus in somewhere I read, and at the time of birth of 3 months or 9 months, 6 months, like 3 months difference. So I was very carefree. See, it was before 3 months and I already had two children. So I was very easy. Today you said soul comes at fetus. So this thought and this emotions.
Yes, so it's an important question, really. You know, I remember when I began my journey to miracles, I would do it. I began by doing it. My first journey into miracles was an all men journey done with men. My second one was an all female journey. I was just looking at whether I should do it separated like that. The female journey, there were like 14 of us, and it was in Bali, and 4 of us had conscious abortions. So I did a particular ceremony there, which is a very powerful, uplifting ceremony. And it was quite shocking for everyone, all of us, to realize how much of that choice that we made for very good reason at the time that we made it, how much of that was still there in our body. You know, just don't beat yourself up about it. It was made as a conscious choice for wherever we were at the time, you know, and now it's time to complete it very powerfully. So, you know, when you do the chakra unblocking meditation, don't rush into it. It can take many days to unblock one chakra, let it be. Just take however long it takes. And thank you for asking that question. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? I know Asha ji.
Justin has, I guess.
Okay. Yes.
Hi, Mynoo. Quite some time ago, some questions came up about psychedelics, and you made some comments about how those energies were wanting to break and to clear on the planet, and they continue to become very popular, at least here in the US. And I'm curious if what the current state of those energies are, and you know what they're wanting and what their role and purpose for humanity is at this point.
So right now, you know, there was a point where they really were becoming a little bit aggressive with us, the psychedelic energies, because they wanted the space to recuperate. Fortunately for us, you know, for them also, and they really played their part in extending that isolation time of the crown phenomenon, the COVID times, right? Because they needed that space to reclaim what they're really here to do. They are going through the tuning up to the new era that the planet is entering into. So we have until 2026, which is how long it's going to take them to tune up. But they've got what they needed to have. So now they're just playing the game. They make no difference whatsoever. You know, they may create some experiences. They're not dangerous. They were dangerous at one point. They're not dangerous anymore, but it does mean that if you go play that game, you can. There's an addictive quality to those experiences that can grip you and then take you away from many other things that you're here to cause and make happen and cause delay for yourself, and therefore you lose utilizing the energies of the planet. You know, so they're not dangerous anymore like they were for a period of time. They're just playing the game. Now it's up to you whether you want to play the psychedelic game or you actually want to play the game of aliveness. It's up to you. But it's a good question. And an important one, because me answering this question anchors, you know, where they were at.
Yeah, and would you clarify the aliveness versus psychedelic game? Because it's interesting that it seems to give an awareness to the qualities of aliveness that are present.
Yeah, yeah. So there is a transient aliveness that you have, which can happen in a whole variety of experiences, you know, and there is the quality of choosing to live your life, and aliveness is a consequence of that. So if I'm living my life and I'm coming alive, what does living my life actually mean physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially, environmentally? And psychedelic is one part of that. It's not full spectrum, you know? So sure, they contribute to an extent, but that full spectrum aliveness, which is really the purpose of why you came in and asked for the state of life, you don't achieve that. You know? Now, as medicine, which is how they were originally there, as medicine, they took you through all of those experiences, all of them, right? And as a result, you got to a new vantage point, and from that, you chose to live your life. That is how the indigenous communities all over the world use them. They didn't use them all over and over. You know, maybe once in a lifetime, you know, maybe a little more than that if that was necessary. Maybe to break a particular pattern, not in the way they are being used right now. So it actually takes away from full spectrum aliveness, and you have momentary fixes, which is where the addictiveness can come in and take you away from really coming alive. This time, all the way until 2026, June 13th, 2026, every moment is magical and it counts. So let's experience it in its full regalia in a full spectrum way. You want to play the game with a psychedelic at any point in time, go play it. And don't just keep doing it. It's not necessary.
Yeah.
That's really how I would answer this.
Great. Yeah. A dependency or a crutch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Thank you. Very helpful.
And, you know, I'm grateful I followed guidance to go into Ask Me Anything, because this sort of nuanced question wouldn't arise unless we are in a dialogue about something like this. Thank you, Justin. Okay. So Ashaji, there's a question that you asked. Please give me the prayers before food, before you eat that you mentioned. I suggest just write it down. You know, Ashaji, you write it down, and anybody else who's interested in it, go ahead and write it down. Here's the prayer that I use. You know, and my prayer is, I thank all the beings that came together to make this food available to me, you know, on my plate. I also appreciate and thank all the beings in me and the being of me to receive full nurturing and nourishment that this food has to offer. So I thank all the beings that came together. So when I often have my eyes closed, when I say I thank all the beings that came together to make this food available to me on my plate, I actually see those tiny little, you know, earthworms and a whole variety of beings that are there in the soil. You know, those people that actually farmed the food that was there, the trucks that carried this food, and the whole lot, including the supermarket. It's like scenes from a movie that keep going in front of my eyes. So what I'm doing here is I'm presencing my presence and truly honoring every being that came together to make this food available to me. And it can be available. And there are many beings in us. We have several trillion beings. It's called our own microbiome terrain. And even if your microbiome depleted, which a lot of us get, there are still sufficient good bacteria in us. And there are beings within me that I thank, including the being of me. But the being of me is the vibration of love, to receive full nurturing and nourishment from the food that I have on my plate. So every morsel, every molecule, every bit of what this food is made up of is infused with that amplified frequency of love. It also means that those beings, like bacteria and parasites and fungus, they are like taken over by the illumination that comes out when I thank and appreciate every being in me and the being of me. They are like so illuminated and acknowledged that any little pockets of darkness that might be there, their power of sucking away the nutrition disappears. I used to, when I lived in Bali, there was a particular form of chanting frequency that I would put on, whilst the food was being cooked. But now I do travel a lot, and I go to restaurants and I go to other people's homes. So I don't necessarily know what the vibration is of the person that is cooking. I mean, I know if I choose to see it, it doesn't matter. I choose to address it in this way, with this blessing. By doing this, not just acknowledging the beings that came together to make this food available to you, but by also acknowledging the being of you as you're receiving this and the beings within you, you are giving permission to your own microbiome to autocorrect itself and multiply. That in itself automatically starts to rebalance and get rid of fungus and bacteria and parasites. Very powerful antiviral as well, simply by choosing to bless your food in this way. It's a very simple thing. You don't have to say it aloud. You can simply do it in your mind. And you can say it aloud if there is a lot of you that are there, or you can say it aloud for yourself. So thank you, Ashaji, for asking me this question and reminding that we hadn't shared it, because it allowed me to elaborate on it in this way. We've come to the end of our Ask Me Anything.
No, Mynoo.
Yes.
I was just going to say that after doing this prayer, last time what we said, same prayer in my own words, I do say that. But one more thing I add, that all the food that is coming in my body, all my organs will be helped. And they'll be more and more, what you call healthy, nice. And they'll be always helping me to go ahead with my, if I'm healthy, I can go ahead with my life. That's what I add.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Ashaji. That is really beautiful. And you can add that. There is a period of time, especially when I travel, it's very easy to go into a state of like inflammation or the lymphatic system becoming lethargic and stuff like that. So I sometimes add very specific things to do with my organs or to do with certain experiences. So that's all really good. I can see there are people that are coming in because we are about to start a Beyond Meditation. Thank you very much for being a part of Ask Me Anything. And I will see you all again next week. If you wish to stay on Beyond Meditation, you can. And if you wish to leave at this point, you can. A deep gratitude to all of you. Thank you.
Mynooji, for the last question, when can
I will talk to you. I will talk to you personally about that.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
Yes, it's
Thank
an important one.
Thank you, Mynoo.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.